Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Kara, maybe start by telling us a little bit about your own background.
So I have been working with ISO standards for the last 15 years. Started out as a project manager and it got landed on my desk, and from there just built on it. So I was in Australia for 10 years implementing management systems in quality, health and safety and environmental. And then 5 years I made the brave journey back home to Ireland, and I worked for a while when I came back, and then last year decided just to bite the bullet and it's time to get back into what I love, and went out on my own and opened up my own company.
So, what is Meany Management Systems and what services do you provide?
So what we do is we implement quality, health, safety and environmental standards in business. So they're ISO standards, they're international standards recognised all over the world, and what we do is we go into with our clients and we implement the standard from beginning to end and help them through the process so that they have the full system in place. And we also offer internal auditing, value stream mapping, so to assist in the process mapping so they can see actually document this is what we do. And we offer consultancy services, but we also offer in-house services where we have someone in their office running their management systems for them, assisting in their meetings and gathering their KPI data. So yeah, it's full on, it's a broad range of services.
And what is ISO?
So ISO is an international standard. And so there's three standards that I work with. There's hundreds of standards. There's actually three that I work with. So that's quality, health, safety and environmental. So the quality standard is, it's an ISO standard that a group of people who know business got together, they got consultation from people all over the world and says, this is best practice for managing this business to help. Like if you implement this, you will be able to manage your customer satisfaction and your business from beginning to end. So that's basically it in a nutshell. It's a standard that you implement into your business so that your business has structure and control and is easy to manage, basically, and it gives you data that you can work on to then continuously improve that business.
So there are three standards that you're currently working with. ISO 9001, let's start with that. That's the quality management system. So if a business went off to implement that into their own organisation, where are the benefits?
So the benefits of a quality management system are vast. So one of the biggest benefits that I see with my clients is that it gives them structure. There's a lot of businesses in Ireland that are run, but they're firefighting. They're putting out fires and they're fixing what causes the fire, or they're fixing the fire but not fixing the arsonist that's causing the fire. So that's where a quality management system comes in. It forces you to plan out your work, to check how it's working, and then act on issues where there's issues. But it focuses on processes rather than people. So that's one of the benefits. The other benefit is it forces you to be consistent on your output. So it maps out your processes and then measures the output so that you can see where your business is doing well and where it's not doing well. And that's one of the biggest benefits that I've seen. It's a big focus on customer satisfaction. So it's looking at your client's experience, how they perceive you, and then how you can improve on that perception so that your business can be developed as a result.
Now, in recent times, businesses are becoming more and more concerned about the environment. You're also assisting businesses implement ISO 14001. So how does that assist the business in relation to improving their overall concern for the environment?
So what 14001 does is it forces businesses to look at the impacts and aspects. So it looks at the impacts that business has on the environment, whether it be positive or whether it be negative. It looks at the positive aspects and explores how you can increase that positive experience, but it also looks at the negative impacts and then asks you to control them negative impacts so that you can reduce your impacts onto the environment by putting in measures and setting goals and objectives to reduce the negative impact that you have. So if everyone did this, the impact that we have, our carbon footprint will be significantly reduced.
Well, there are significant responsibilities on employers in relation to health and safety here in Ireland. So how does ISO 45001 assist in that respect?
So ISO 45001, it really is an important standard for businesses. Even if they choose not to get certified, it's a really good tool to help them manage their legal obligations. the law in Ireland is a minefield. There's so much legislation that employers are forced and have to comply with in order to manage health and safety in their workplace. And what the standard does is it asks you to look at your compliance obligations, look at what laws are in place, and then it also asks you to demonstrate or document how you're going to manage them laws. So if the law is, working at heights, a permit, then the compliance obligation would be to ensure that your working at heights permits are in place, that you audit, that you have a structure and control in place to make sure that only people that are responsible for working at heights do so. And so it gives you the structure around the laws, and it just gives you guidance on how to work your way through them so that it's not so much information for clients to take in.
And what are the main reasons that businesses want to implement new ISO standards?
So, well, there's many. So generally ISO standards are a requirement for tenders. So for some clients that would be a motivator. Once they have the system in place, they actually see what the benefits are. And then the other is the client who maybe has a lot of fires that they want to put out, and they're looking for more process and structure and control, and that's what the standard does. So whether it's quality, health and safety or environment, all three standards require you to have controls in place to manage when things are going well, that you can grow on it, and when things are going badly and you can act on it quickly before it becomes a big issue or before it becomes something that's out of their control. So the standard, that's what they do. They give that structure, and that's what clients are looking for.
Now, there is a perception out there in the market that ISO standards are only for large companies. What would you say to that?
So I have worked with every different kind of business, from universities to manufacturing to one-man organizations to two-man organizations to 200-man organizations. So it really is a standard that can be implemented anywhere. And that's kind of the point of them. So the standards are very broad, and they're very broad so that they can work with any kind of business, which is why people need the likes of me to help them interpret how what that does and what that means to that business in particular. So any size of business can benefit from control and from managing their legal obligations and managing their processes so that they have positive output of them processes.
Now, ISO itself is not a new phenomenon, so why is it still relevant in this modern business environment?
Well, actually, the ISO standards have all been updated recently. So in 2015, the environmental and the quality standards were updated, and in 2018, the health and safety standard was updated. And one of the reasons why these were updated is to stay relevant, to stay with businesses as they grow and they develop, and there's new and better ways of doing things have been identified. These standards have moved with the business. So at the moment, there's a lean way of doing things. So Lean and Six Sigma have become a big part of businesses, and the ISO standards are actually designed at the moment so that they interact really nicely with Lean principles. So the older versions of the standards would have been more document heavy and focused on piles of procedures and piles of records, whereas the new standards have been updated and modernized so that they take away from having the documents and having the procedures in place to having actually letting businesses define how they want to do it and demonstrate how they want to do it. And so the need for that paperwork heavy olden day is long gone, and now it's more focused on practical solutions, process mapping, and the link between quality and lean is that strong now that when these are worked, they actually need to be used together, and when they're used together, they actually provide significant benefit to a business.
And Kara, what does the ISO accreditation process involve, and how do you guide your clients through this process?
Personally, how I see, and from my experience in the industry, the best way to do it is I take them through a process. So what I would do is I would meet with a client and I would get the measure of actually what they need, what kind of business they have, and what they're looking for, and then I'd work out a program. So we'd normally address a different section of the standard. So over a period of, say, 5 months, I would come in to the client, I would meet with the client once a week or once a fortnight, depending on what pace they wanted to work at. I would pick a section of the standard, we would go through the requirements and how that standard links with their business and how their business can get benefit from that section of the standard. We would develop that section, implement, let it run, and then pick the next section and implement that one too. And that process can take anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to a year, depending on the type of business. Generally, around 5 months is a fair guesstimate from engagement to certification. What happens then is once the system is implemented, we conduct our own internal audit. We make sure everything is in place and everything's correct. We conduct a management review, and then what happens is an external body such as NSEI or EQS or any of the certification bodies in Ireland, they come in and they audit our system. So it's completely independent audit. They come in, they do a stage 1 and a stage 2. So the length of audit depends on the size of the organisation. And they come in and they audit, they verify, and then they certify the system. So everything is independently assessed and audited. And then once you are certified, you stay certified for 3 years with a recertification audit every year. So you can you're constantly getting audited. So you have to keep your game up. Then once the systems is in, it's about improving what you have and growing your business with your system.
And in relation to implementing ISO into any organisation, does it meet with much resistance? And if so, how do you overcome that?
Well, in my experience, every bit of change comes with fear. So what I do is I never go into a business and say, this is what you need to do. I never go to an engineer and say, this is what you need to do. I look at what the engineer is doing together, and we work together to develop a system that works for that engineer, but is also compliant. So I don't impose a system, I develop a system, and that helps with the change. People are afraid of what they don't understand. People don't understand the standards. If they understood the standards, there would be no need for me to be in the industry at all. So my job is to teach people and manage that change. And so through working with people, through engagement, through active participation, it means that people understand. They understand. And when I leave, which eventually I do, they still have a good, strong knowledge of what they're doing. So I never take the approach of going into a business, writing a procedure and giving it to someone and making them say, right, here you go, this is what you do. I develop that procedure with the people that is relevant to, and that manages that change, and it does limit the resistance. There's always a little bit of resistance. Change is scary, and it's just about how we manage that change.
Now, of course, ISO isn't the only management system that exists out there. I'm also thinking about things like the Q mark. But how does ISO differ from the other management systems in operation?
Well, ISO, it works well with the other organisations that are in place from a health and safety perspective. You've got a health and safety management system for 45001. You've also got safety, sir. But they do both look for the same things. But ISO, it's an internationally recognised body. Whether you're here or in Australia or in Afghanistan, it's the same standard. It's best practice. And that's not taking away from any other systems that are in place. The importance of having a system is a benefit. But ISO is internationally recognised. There's people all over the world that have, developed these principles and actually seen results in it. It wouldn't have the reputation that it does if it didn't work. And once it's implemented correctly, and the right controls are in place and the right measurements of them controls are in place, then it is going to work, and it does give good benefits. And once people use it, they can see that it's clear that then benefits are in place.
And from clients that you've worked with in the past, Kara, where did they go wrong in relation to process improvement?
Biggest area from improvement that they've seen is they don't measure. So you can't mind what you don't measure. And that old principle, it goes and it still stands strong to this day. People implement a process, but they're not measuring how that process is performing. If you don't know how it's performing, you can't improve. So when you have a process, you set a KPI for that process, you see where that process is going well and where it's not. If you're measuring it, then you can see how you can fix it. But if you don't have that data, you'll never be able to fix it. You'll only ever see that it's not working. So getting that data and getting that measurement of the process now, not the people running the process, you're looking at the process in itself. So if you have that information, you can use that information. It's a really valuable tool to improve on what you have. But if you don't have it, what happens is processes fall flat. They become a map that sits on a drive that nobody ever looks at. They just continue to do their job, and when things go wrong, they just flop back to the way it's always been instead of actually looking at where that process has gone wrong. The other thing that they do is when something does go wrong, they fix it, but they don't actually fix what causes it to go wrong in the first place. So you're looking at when there's a fire, you're taking out the arsonist, not just the require.
And I know that one concern that businesses often have about implementing a quality management system is the amount of resources that are required to both implement it and also to manage it on an ongoing basis.
This is actually something that's a very valid point, Carl, and this is something that I've come across, and it's actually, I built this into my business model. So the approach that I take is what I call a lean management system. So we've gone a long way away from the days of massive documentation, massive processes, huge piles of records that you have to generate. What I like to do is I like to implement a lean system. So I implement exactly what you need and not one thing more. If I implement exactly what you need, it gives you a really solid base, but it doesn't take up all of your resources trying to manage procedures that aren't practical and realistically aren't necessary either. So we all know in every organisation in the country we have procedures. If a procedure is more than a page or too long, nobody's going to read it. It's going to sit on a drive and it's going to become irrelevant and it doesn't get implemented. So what I try and do is take a really lean, practical approach. I implement what you need and then I give you something really solid that you can build on. Because the resources that it requires, they're not that significant. The most resource that has to be invested into a quality management system is trying to figure out what it is, and that's me. That's what I do, is I work out what you need for your business in particular, and then we develop it and then it's in place. But because I work with the people in their processes, I'm just taking what they already have and adapting it to suit the requirements and to help them measure their performance. I'm not giving them anything new. I'm not implementing something that is more than they need. So it does limit the resources that they have to put in place.
And finally, Kara, once an ISO system is put in place, of course it has to be independently audited on an ongoing basis. How often is that audit required?
So annually. Annually is the fair. So internally it has to be audited at a frequency to your desire, so long as the whole system is covered in a year. Externally, your system is normally audited every year. So the ISO system works in a cycle of 3 years. Your first year is a certification audit, then you have a recertification, and then a re-audit on the third year. So you have surveillance audits in between. So what that means is that once you're certified, then you've got 1 year, and then a surveillance audit will come and look at parts of your system, not the entire system, but parts of your system, making sure everything is still ticking over okay. They'll do that again the year after, and then they'll do that for a third year, where you'll be up for a whole recertification. They'll look at the whole system altogether.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
South